Am I the a-hole for requiring my son and his wife sign a contract before I give the stepchildren college money? I, 56 male, have 3 children. Sam, 32 male, Eve, 30 female, and Amy, 28 female. Sam and Eve are married with children, and my wife and I started college funds for them that we put money in at least twice a year. Sam married a woman, Jane, 36 female, who already had 2 children from a previous relationship, and we have accepted them as part of the family once they proved that they were serious. My wife and I invite them over, give them presents, attend after-school activities, occasionally babysit, and don't mind that they call us grandpa and grandma. During our first in-person family get-together since COVID, my wife and our children and their children came over along with my sister-in-law and her family. It was especially nice because this was the first time that we were meeting sister-in-law's first grandchild, a sweet baby girl who's 8 months old. The topic of saving up for college came up, and my wife casually mentioned about how we started up college funds for all 3 grandchildren. Sam's wife overheard and walked in laughing to say, "You mean 5. Not wanting to cause any future problems through miscommunication, I corrected and explained things to Jane. She didn't seem upset at the time, but after everyone had left, Sam called and said how upset he and Jane were that we didn't start up funds for Sam's stepchildren. I told him that it was our money, and we could do whatever we wanted with it, and to think of it as a way to focus any money that they would have put towards his biological child to just give to the stepchildren. I thought that my reasoning was logical, and thought that my son agreed when he stopped talking about it. Again, we were called about the lack of funding for the stepchildren, and Jane wanted to know why we weren't treating them equally. I calmly explained that in almost every other way, we do treat the kids like our other grandchildren, but their ties to us are only there through marriage. And if Sam and Jane were to divorce, then they may not be our grandchildren anymore. Jane was really hurt by this, and asked me if that meant that her kids wouldn't inherit anything once my wife and I were gone. I felt very offended because that was a personal question, but answered yes. If Jane and Sam were still married by the time we died, her kids would get something. But if she wanted it to be an equal share and us to start a college fund for the first 2 kids, then she and Sam would need to sign an agreement stating that they would never divorce. Jane got offended, and I asked her why she would be if she truly loves my son and never intends to divorce him. My other children agree that signing an agreement wouldn't be a big deal, but Sam is upset too. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, because I know that this might come up. I am aware that blood ties aren't always what makes people family, and as far as I know, Sam hasn't legally adopted Jane's first 2 children. Also, when the college funds were mentioned, we were out of earshot from all the children, so the only way Jane's kids would find out is if an adult tells them. Edited to add too. 1, because I keep seeing this. No, this agreement wouldn't be to keep them from getting a divorce. That's ridiculous. It would be in regards to both my son and Jane paying back any of the college fund money that the stepkids use. 2, yes, my wife and I are more well-off than Jane's parents. So if they are starting a college fund, I don't expect it to be as much as we could contribute. 3, no, I don't know about the stepkids' biological paternal side, as they live elsewhere, and my wife and I have no reason to be in communication with them. I can only ever think of one time that I've actually seen them in person. Edited to add 3, another one because I'm still getting the same thing, so I'll explain my reasoning a bit more. No matter what happens with my children's marriages, their children will always be my grandchildren from both a legal and biological standpoint. The same can't be said for Jane's kids, because what happens if she and my son divorce and each of them remarry? Am I supposed to still give her first 2 children an equal amount as everyone else? Also, what if Sam marries another woman with kids, and I'm expected to be just as financially responsible for them as the others? Where does it end? Also, that means that there will be less money all around, and I don't want to do that. Now for the top comments. Not a a-hole, assuming that the contract doesn't prevent them from divorcing. Please be clear in your language when talking about contracts. However, I would change the phrasing of the contract to indicate enforceable conditions. Answering as someone who has read a lot of family law cases with a lot of drama worse than this. 1, if she really doesn't have any plans to divorce your son anyway, why can't she sign a contract? Because she wants the privileges with no strings attached. 2, Primarily, it is the parents' responsibility to provide support for their stepchildren, not your responsibility as a grandparent. It is easy for them to use guilt and make you give money when it doesn't involve any sacrifice on their part. Why can't your son and his wife provide for the education for the stepchildren? Why can't your son give up his inheritance if the college fund is so important? 3. It is your son's decision to accept them as stepchildren, and you are merely respecting and agreeing with this decision. Your relation to them is a mere side effect, not your direct, independent, personal decision. 4. Legally, his stepchildren can still indirectly inherit through him anyway. 5. Legally, the stepchildren can claim support from their biological dad, depending on the country's law and the facts surrounding the situation. 6. Your money, your decision. You are already treating/seeing your son's stepchildren as equal to your biological children, but it doesn't mean you have to give them a lot of money conditionally. Your relation to them will be severed the moment your son and his wife divorce. 7. My spidey senses tell me that his wife has a sense of entitlement. Also, please look into trust administrators for your bio-grandkids' money. There have been enough posts here to anticipate Sam and Jane pressuring Sam's bio-kids to share their money with the stepkids. Damn straight. You know that will happen already. I could see the piece of work daughter-in-law pressuring Sam's siblings to pool their kids' money together with theirs for the stepkids. Not today, Hall. My aunts and uncles went through a number of marriages when I was a kid, often with stepchildren. Despite how much the then-married couples claimed their love was forever, the majority of those marriages didn't last until the kids reached adulthood, much less finished college. When it comes to people, I'm only connected to via someone else's marriage. I'm aware that I may not be connected to them for long. I agree. The son and wife have every right to feel the way they do, but this grandparent also has every right to save/use their money on what they feel is the best thing. I wouldn't expect my step-parents or their parents to save money for me, even though I came into their life when I was young. Yes, they treat me like their other grandchildren, but I know that if my parents/step-parents were to divorce, it'd cause a shift in our relationship with the extended family. I don't think OP's the a-hole. I don't really see how it's the grandparents' responsibility to save college money for the grandkids. It should be the parents, so it's a nice thing you're doing. They should be grateful. This Jane seems very entitled, and you should stand your ground because divorces are too likely to happen. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother my stepdad's not my dad? My dad was in my life until he died when I, male 16, was 7. My mom was already married to my stepdad AJ by then, and my brother was barely 1 year old. I never considered AJ anything than just my brother's dad. For a long time, my mom kept trying to make me call him dad because my brother copied everything I do, and he started calling his dad AJ too. But he grew out of that and just calls him dad now. I can tell AJ don't like that we don't have that kind of relationship, and been in family therapy before. The therapist basically told them to give me my space and I shouldn't be pressured. So they dropped the sessions. Lol. I don't know why out of the blue my brother randomly asked me a few days ago, how come I always called dad AJ? And I told him because AJ is not my real dad. He never asked this before, so it caught me by surprise. My brother told me I'm lying. How could he not be my dad? And I told him my real dad died when I was little, so that's how AJ isn't my dad. But then he asked if that means we're not brothers. And I told him we are because we have the same mom. He just had a million questions about my dad after that, so I told him what I remember. But my mom got mad at me for telling him that AJ is not my real dad, and making it seem like I don't consider him family, and that I just confused my brother about our family. I don't know why, but now AJ is ignoring me when I'm in the room, and it gets awkward when my brother asks more questions about my dad in front of them. Was I an a-hole for telling him the truth? Not an a-hole. Your mom shouldn't hide the truth about your real dad. Just disrespectful to his life. Your brother will understand and love you all the same. Yeah, my brother hasn't acted different. Just ask more random questions about him sometimes. He asked, you answered. Your mom and AJ should have known that would happen someday. It's not a bad thing that he knows that he's asking questions so that it will all make sense to him. Not an a-hole. Not an a-hole. Your mom is trying to force a relationship. You're right. AJ isn't your dad, and you don't have to call him such. It sounds like you have a cordial relationship. Your mom is just mad she has to do the labor of facilitating a blended family, which is her job, so tough luck to her. You're 16, not 6 months. You get to decide who you feel familial towards. And trying to erase Opie's dad's memory. That is so unbelievably crappy. Not an a-hole completely. Your brother is still young and doesn't understand how having a step-family works yet. So in the words of r/, I will give you 5/5 buttholes for telling him something that most likely will change his outlook on life forever. Let me explain why you aren't the a-hole and shouldn't feel like one. 1. Your brother was going to learn anyway. 2. You don't feel comfortable calling AJ your dad because he technically isn't, and you don't have that bond with him. Your mom needs to understand that. 3. AJ ignoring you means that he's hurt, but more butthurt that you aren't doing things the way he wants. Your younger brother did nothing wrong and was just curious, and you answered his question. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for insulting my brother as a parent after his repeated suggestions about leaving my wife? Over a year and a half ago, my wife was in a serious car accident that's changed our lives. She suffered serious injuries and she almost didn't make it. By some miracle, she pulled through, but now she's permanently paralyzed from the waist down. We had a 5-month-old baby girl, and I'm not going to lie, it was a major challenge for us both settling into our new lives and managing parenthood. I was the one doing most of the childcare while my wife recovered. My family has been very supportive and lending a helping hand every now and then. My brother, not so much, but then again, we're not that close. Over the past year when we'd talk, he'd say things like, "Man, I don't know how you have the patience for her anymore. Just leave already." Or make comments about my wife being kind of selfish for not at least suggesting I be allowed to see other people given that we won't be intimate anymore. Completely untrue, but not really his business. My family and myself have berated him for talking that way, and I've told him to watch what he says. None of this was ever said in front of my wife, but it still bothered me. Recently, I was talking with my parents and brother on Zoom. My daughter has been having trouble sleeping, so I've been quite tired. My brother again ran his mouth. He doesn't understand why I'm still bothering with her when she's no longer doing me any good, and offered to give me his divorce attorney's information because I obviously didn't sign up to be my wife's babysitter on top of parenting. This irked me because 1, my wife has been perfectly capable of taking care of herself. Obviously, she still needs assistance sometimes, and I help her. And 2, I still love my wife very much, and not going to leave her because it's no longer beneficial, as it puts it. And I told him as such. I also brought up that, unlike him, I don't dip out when there's trouble and shirk my responsibilities. That upset him too, so he ended a call. I brought this up because my brother divorced his wife, and since then he only sees my niece, his daughter, whenever he feels like it, which is rare. My parents have scolded me for stooping to his level. My brother also says I'm a prick when he's just thinking about my best interest, and that's no reason to drag him. I'll admit I was pretty pissed off in the moment, so maybe I was an a-hole? Now for the comments. Not an a-hole. Your brother needs to mind his own business, and I'm shocked that your parents are scolding you. Good luck to you and your wife with everything. You sound like a good husband. I think because everyone in my family is used to my brother and his unfiltered opinions, and it's just him being his usual self. Well, sounds like his usual self is an a-hole. It's good that you stood up to him. Someone clearly needed to. It almost sounds like your brother has the opinion your wife can't be intimate with you, whether it's true or not, and so she's not worth the time anymore? This just screams what kind of person he is, to be honest. Also, doesn't marriage vows usually say something about in sickness and in health? So when he callously said you didn't sign up for this, he's not even right anyway. Not an a-hole. And thank you for taking your marriage and wife seriously. Many people would unfortunately have the opinion your brother does, and those people are a-holes. That's been a major factor in why he thinks I should leave her or feels I should at least be allowed to have fun on the side. I don't imagine ever leaving my wife, much less over something like this. Was it hard? Yes. Did I have my own moments where I felt completely broken down because it was all too overwhelming? Absolutely. But we've made it out stronger. and it just felt like he was disrespecting how far we've come by acting like she's been nothing but a chore. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not leaving work to bring my pregnant wife a change of shoes? My 30-male wife, Charlotte, 38 female, is a very senior corporate lawyer and works in the city. She's mostly been working from home due to events, but recently they've started to return to the office. Charlotte is also 5 months pregnant. Charlotte wears heels pretty much everywhere that isn't home or the gym. I always suggest she take a spare pair of flats, but she always refuses. She says it's a matter of pride. She's gotten to a point in the pregnancy where her feet are starting to swell, so it's becoming increasingly uncomfortable wearing her shoes. However, she has still refused to take flats with her. I work in construction, and my current site is about an hour away from Charlotte's office. I got a call from her yesterday. She said that her feet were in agony, and she didn't think she would be able to walk to the train station and go on the train home in her heels. She wanted me to find a shoe shop and buy a cheap pair of trainers or flip-flops, or alternatively bring my trainers. I normally wear trainers to work and then change into my work boots, so she could wear them home. The problem was that my shift didn't end for another couple of hours after she finished work. I asked my boss if I could leave to help my wife, but he refused as there is a lot of work to do. I asked Charlotte if she'd be willing to wait at the office for me, but she said she didn't want to. When I got home, I found Charlotte curled up sobbing. She said she forced herself to get home in heels and that her feet were in pain. She's upset with me because she thinks I should have insisted on leaving so I could help her. Seeing how upset she was, I tried to hug her, but she wanted me to go away. I genuinely feel awful about her being in so much pain. I'm almost in tears about it myself, but there wasn't much I could have done. I couldn't exactly tell my boss I was leaving whether he liked it or not. I offered her to wait for me to finish, but she refused. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. As a heel wearer, you always have a backup pair of shoes at work. How ridiculous. She's a hotshot lawyer. Shouldn't these problem-solving skills be her jam? I understand she's pregnant and hormonal, etc., but my blood boils after reading this post. She is asking her working husband to get her shoes so she can go home? What happened to being a strong, independent woman? Edited to add, not the halopi. I am a woman who has been pregnant and also have been in sticky situation where I had to put on my big girl pants and solve things without my husband's help. I've heard of some people, who probably have money to burn, who Uber eats frivolous items like beauty blenders. So, just an expensive hack for anyone who's in a pinch. Not the a-hole. Your wife is an adult. She should have realized by now that she can't wear the heels all the time. I'm not pregnant, and in the before times, I carried a pair of trainers to change into after office hours. I'm not even sure how your wife is planning to handle the day that heels have so damaged her feet and ankles she can't wear them at all. As a retired professional female office worker who had no idea what I'd be doing in the course of a day, what I kept at my office: heels, steel toe boots, tennis shoes, trainers, house shoes, rain boots for rain/mud, flats, casual and dress, extra pantyhose, stockings, and lots of extra socks, also changes of clothing. I agree with above poster. She may be pregnant, but she was a grown woman first and should know to be prepared. Clearest not the a-hole of the week. You told her to carry spare shoes. You try to get off of work. She may be hormonal, but that's no excuse to be an a-hole.